Why, hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to HoI 4, TNO, Last Days of Europe, as Guangdong. Now, last video, what were we doing last video? I think we were finishing up a lot of our economic stuff. Getting ready to drill down and get some extra space. And yeah, we're going to get the cogs turning, get some extra support going. And then we'll probably get working on making Guangdong independent financially. That's what I think. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Mr. Matsushita, there are terms we must discuss of our contract, called Sato, his pace quickening towards the chief executive, Matsushita's side, and Representative Kata. Mr. Matsushita, while we at Mitsubishi Mining are grateful for the cooperation of your cabinet, there are a few key issues with the conditions of your proposal. Matsushita furrowed his brow. He knew... I'm going to readjust my timer real quick. I'm not going to go for too long. He knew on the condition of contract would be a problem for Zaibatsu. Mitsubishi was notorious for its workers' conditions, especially in China. I'm aware of the issues your company has with our terms, but I must remind you these are terms that we have agreed upon. I have no intention of changing my mind last minute. The representative was clearly irritated by Matsushita's decision. I understand, sir, but paid medical leave, increase in workers' salaries, shortened work hours, so make a whole operation very unprofitable. Our accountants here in Guangdong took the liberty of calculating a new cost of investment for your government, given the expenses of your terms. President and Matsushita a paper, which he glanced through quickly. Matsushita's eyes widened at the form. The new investment amount demanded was more than double that was agreed upon. Mr. Sadao, I'm not even sure if the Guangdong Treasury has this much money. Well then, it seems mutually profitable for our two parties to renegotiate the terms of our contract. Matsushita paused for a moment. It would be cheaper now to remove the terms and put the government on the good side of one of the Spear's largest corporations. On the other hand, to remove the terms would mean facing the already disgruntled native populace. Yeah, I don't know about that. Extra GDP growth would be nice, but I'm sorry, the terms agreed upon are non-negotiable. Good day. I think next we'll go ahead and keep the cogs a-turning. The economy of the nation appears to be in a consistent pattern, surge after surge, rocketing towards success. As such, it is necessary that we provide sufficient oversight as to ensure that this new economic paradigm will be allowed to continue to prosper and retain its upwards course. If the economy continues its progress, we may soon begin to satisfy our ambition of industrial growth. Autosave. So it looks like we've got a little couple, Guangdong network now. So years went on, the traditional security apparatus is replaced with a new methodology, one more suitable Chief Executive Matsushita Masaharu's aims for the state of Guangdong. Matsushita has constructed a powerful, inscrutable network of informants, secret service, and elite officers in order to ensure that the police, more than any other force, remain the velvet-gloved fist of the chief executive of Guangdong, preserving his position above all others in the region. The police are not obliged to be visible or accountable to the people. They need only be effective in the preservation of the status quo and the prerogatives of those entrusted with preserving it. Matsushita Masaharu's men are experts, par excellence, in this. There we go. How's our economic health looking right now? Ooh, we went up a credit rating. Wonderful. We got up from intermediate to good. I like it. We got a heck of a surplus going for us. I want to check real quick. We've still got some time to catch up with our goals, but we'll make it there. Got pretty good interest going on right now with our product. We need another 12% support. Did I go ahead? I did fix that. Okay. Just want to make sure. Let's get to part 2 of this. Coffee and cigarettes. The break room of the Kowloon police station housed a coffee machine that spewed slightly rancid brown liquid. Coming off from a ship, Long hung his coat and took a plastic cup, draining some of that coffee into it. He sat down at a table and drew a cigarette from his breast pocket. Slightly draining shift. His eyes felt slightly red. After this, Lam would go home and watch TV for some morning news before collapsing just as the sun rose. He saw his workmates amble around the concrete floor, talking in groups of two about their work, personal lives, and family. What little politics they discussed relate to the formation of new legislative council in Guangdong. A sense of canine loyalty stuck around his feelings, and he eavesdropped on the interiors of the other routines. We were a different breed, he thought. Dogs serving a master faithful to the pack. When the sergeant strode into the room and told them to gather for a meeting in the briefing room, they all drained their cups and dragged their cigarettes, following in the wake of the officer. From this day on, the Japanese inspector said, continuing from the usual bromides of service and loyalty, you'll be transferred to Koshu. Strange name was the Japanese onyomi reading of Guangzhou. The purpose of your transfer is to be the integration, preparation, and performance examination of the upcoming formation of a unified independent Guangdong police force. Am I understood? A wave of positive answers, affirmative statements. Lam raised his hand. He'd been on the streets long enough to know that Kenpai Tai was involved. The armbanded military police wing of the Japanese army, always ready to seize profits where they could. Kowloon was a slum, easy money for the people who knew which buttons to push, which triggers to pull. Does the Kenpai Tai have anything to do with this? The Japanese inspector eyed him, a slight glint on his face. He gave Lam a wry smile. Mr. Coulson, you signed up to follow orders, not question them. Your badge and uniform that you were wearing, that is the insignia of protection given to you by the state. I hope you have not forgotten your orientation sessions. The inspector turned to leave. The whole room rose and left with him, badge, gun, uniform. All that allowed them to see the souls of the pearl. Here we go. We still need some quality. 25% of quality in order to get there. But, I'll wait a little bit. I'm sure we're going to get some more events. So we'll be okay. Engineering, we'll go ahead and do integrated circuit computing. A thick pile of papers and documents rested neatly upon the sumptuous wooden desk of a chief executive, bearing the recent financial reports of each major corporation in Guangdong. Matsushita began opening the beige envelopes in his usual gentle manner. His facial expression was composed and indifferent. After all, this was just another procedural inspection. Within his mind, however, he was far from placid. His emotions flew around his head like a kaleidoscope of butterflies, brimming with ecstasy and relief. This was the accumulation of his efforts, confirmations that he had managed to achieve something his predecessors were never able to achieve: economic stability. As he read, though, through the numbers of each corporation with attentiveness, he could not help but smile. The pages were adorned with favorable figures and projections, a steady rise in profits and sales shared equally among the firms. The businessmen were satisfied. That is the only thing that mattered. As long as their graphs and charts continued to project upwards, they would be docile. He now had no reason to continue this initiative of direct adjustment. He had accomplished enough. The ailing system had been corrected. Matsushita laid back in his chair and poured himself a cool glass of sake. He was worthy, he thought. His leadership had proven to be fruitful. The reins of power rested firmly within his hands. An accomplishment. One of many. There we go. think we'll go ahead. We don't have the seats to work on this one. Not even close. So for now, yeah, we'll go ahead and ensure a healthy budget. Balanced budget is a healthy budget. While Suzuki and his cronies may have thought it wise to spend yen like water, it is up to us to clean the mess they have created. It will not be an easy task. Years of deficit spending has left everyone with their own golden gooses and sacred cows, and we will need to tread carefully to keep our majority and balance the budget. Cut too many cows and raise too many taxes, and we might find ourselves in a rather similar position to our former chief executive. True. Well, hopefully we'll figure it out. Getting more options of stuff to do, I believe. We'll do that. And, 5. Probably 12.5. Yeah, that's what we need for interest. And then we need 25 over here. So I can force some overtime. Now it's more skilled engineers. And we'll be maxed out. And insert ear rape there. Student rights in Nuremberg. Interesting. So I want to know where the play button on this thing is. And we got our 3 factories, our 3 legislative seats figured out. Which is beautiful. Ensuring a healthy budget. That's mainly admin efficiency. Okay, we also get some liquid reserves. Also, our budget, or our deficit's going down pretty well. Let's look towards cutting wasteful spending. Predecessors have seen fit to commit government funding to many unnecessary programs, especially initiatives designed to assist with Guangdong's working class. Such programs may have been defendable in better fiscal times, but are prime examples of sort of frivolous spending which got us into this mess in the first place. Funding for these programs will have to be cut if our budgetary shortfalls can be resolved. We must tread carefully to avoid provoking too much unrest among Guangdong's workers, while also taking crucial steps to bring our budget back into the black. Well, our budget already seems to be pretty black. In fact, it seems pretty green. Generally. I'm probably going to do a tax cut here. Get some more growth going. Crisis in Nanjing. Well, we could invest this into our economy, but I think we're getting more reserves anyway, so. Matsushita has our purses lips for review as he reviewed the revised government budget estimates for Guangdong, tapping his pen repeatedly against the figure circled in red at the bottom of the ledger. The figure was insignificant, problematic, considering the financial hole that the government had barely climbed out of. Even with the proposal to cut wasteful spending and entice new investments, there were little fiscal reserves left over. There was no point in running extravagant surpluses. Matsushita knew as well as any other businessman that you had to spend money to make money, but he soon had proven that nothing offered more comfort to skittish investors than a pile of cash sitting in the bank. Idly, Matsushita looked at the telephone sitting silently on its desk. It would be proper, he knew, to call a meeting with tycoons and ask them to do their fair share. They'd all suffered during the Matsushita crisis, trying to staunch the capital flight that had taken indiscriminate bites out of his stock prices. But past history was no indicator of future performance, and if the venal politics of legislative council were any indication, Matsushita knew that appealing to shared interest was a sucker's game. There was, of course, the path less traveled. All Matsushita needed was a pile of cash, on paper. that was large enough to convince investors to stay the course. For most investors, a promise backed by a government was more than good enough. He was a former banker. He knew the words the other banks and institutional investors needed to hear, the safeguards and covenants that would give them access to their money and let them keep the risk. It was, of course, a scheme, but at least it would be his scheme and nobody else's. Oh, that is interesting. I don't know what to do here, honestly. If I had anyone in chat right now, I'd probably go ahead and ask them. I'm not seeing anything on the Reddit. All safe here. This might go horribly. I don't know. Save here. I think I'll call the tycoons. This is their burden to share. At least for now. Do I want to reinforce anyone over here? It's a little too close for comfort in Chokai, so I think I'll go ahead and reinforce the police here. And do I want to modernize them? I think I'm fine with just reinforcing them. It is a vacuum cleaner, I was about to ask. Vacuum cleaners have always been on the market for some time, but they've been bulky, unwieldy, and primarily used by professional cleaning companies. The result is that the average middle-class housewife would never be caught using one, as they're generally viewed as tools for the help. But with the release of the Matsushita electrics, MC1000C, that may change. Designed to be small enough to maneuver around corners and light enough to carry upstairs, the MC1000C also comes in a sleek, stylish design that makes it look more like a household appliance than a piece of industrial equipment. With these innovations, Matsushita hopes to make the vacuum cleaner an essential tool for every housewife. Wonderful. Extra real GDP growth and miscellaneous income. Spectacular. 3%, and a huge amount of profit of our trade with the Germans. England and Scotland is at war. Mugabe's winning over down there, which is sad to see. My boy Suretse deserves better than that, but... Sitting before the Fuhrer was a nerve-wracking experience at the best of times. Sitting before the Fuhrer and the entire Gang of Four was even more so. Kurt Kissinger at least looked friendly. Matsushita shifted his collar and locked eyes with Ludwig Erhard, who was puffing away on a fat cigar. They observed each other impassively for a moment. Helmut Schmidt did not look happy to be here. Matsushita knew that he was in favor of closer trade relationships with the Americans. Speer himself was, of course, inscrutable as ever. Suddenly the Fuhrer began to speak, and the Japanese eyes turned to his interpreter. The Fuhrer would like to know what the precise benefits of this equipment are. Temperature and humidity controls are a key driver of productivity increases. A comfortable environment, particularly in the context of an office, is very helpful to maintain morale and work rates. As he waited for the interpreter to finish, he motioned for one of his engineers to switch on the unit. Cool air flowed through the rooms, slightly ruffling the Fuhrer's hair. The equipment is perfectly safe. Matsushita continued, knowing full well that the R&D had already disassembled the unit well before it reached the Fuhrer's office. Speer remained quiet for a moment before turning to Schmidt, who gave him a begrudging shrug. A small smile broke across the Fuhrer's face, and he began to speak again. Once again, Matsushita's eyes swiveled to the interpreter. A lovely little zing. I'll throw the Speer voice in a little bit there. Nope. Summertime walk, gleaming neon lights in striking color against the backdrop of the stars. The city shuddered as trucks carrying rocks and sand trudged by the pavements. Water ran down the side of buildings and flowed smoothly into the drain, washing away the graffiti in soapy form. Scaffolding clambered alongside the concrete and steel frames of prospective factories to apartment stores. Bursts of arc welders flare and whiz away in long instances. Soft rain pattered the scenes. The wind blew seaward. Shivering in his coat, Lam took a cigarette off the pack, lit it, and dragged it languidly, drinking in the air and the smog as they congealed in the city's breath, drawing in, drawing out. Another day at the station. He entered the precinct and hung his coat at a nearby hangar. The air felt a little stale, a familiar sensation after a year on the force. He was a sergeant now, a position that bristled with new responsibilities. Fresh-faced Chinese recruits from the upriver turned up in his squads, still green, much too young to see the other face of the province. This evening, after his patrols, he had to give presentations to these people. Versus the vagaries of policemanship, squatters, construction hazards, licenses, and the basics of handling those stuff. Easy stuff. Next subject was quite a lot harder. Heuristics and logic, intuition and investigative sense. Just like in Sherlock Holmes, he said, detectives' work requires a certain capacity of deduction on your part. Once you've been there at the scene, gathered up the evidence, sent them processing, and did your paperwork, there it is. A pattern emerges. You question yourself, you question your partners, you call up the witnesses and ring what little emerges. Once a thread passes through the eye of the needle, everything is easier. Thread the pattern. Apprehend the correct suspects. Solve the case. The younger policeman gave a little applause, and Lam felt a faint smile in return. All of them were Chinese, that was indisputable. Beyond that bond of loyalty and appreciation, however, loomed the shape of something greater, something even more ineffable, yet tangibly sharp. What was it? For what is change but man in the caprice of time? It shouldn't have been surprised. The vacuum Nintendo would manufacture and garner anywhere near enough sales to justify continued production. The venture was a misstep, made official as Yamauchi crumpled up the piece of paper that started the whole endeavor, deposited it unceremoniously in the waistband. It was clear Nintendo couldn't compete with the corporate titans already dominating the consumer electronics market. Shelves could only fit so much product after all. Maybe if Yamauchi's vacuum had some clear advantage over the competition, he could have carved out a niche for Nintendo, but no, that wasn't going to happen. Reviews of the appliance had pointed out their poor quality, sloppy assembly, and frequent malfunctions. Nintendo simply didn't have the experience to provide that kind of quality needed to compete with larger veteran corporations. Yamauchi sighed in his office chair before heading to the drawing board once more, as he always had done in the past. The cycle manifests once more. We can get the new generation of assault rifles, or infantry rifles, rather. I think I'll do that. More as hell. Ooh. Don't want to take the seat hit, I think. The task seemed simple enough to complete when he'd sent out the request for 3 separate spending plans to be drawn up, but now that Matsushita stood over them, he could not simply make up his mind. Too many lines of thought were tangled in his mind. He determined that the only course of action was to sit down and attempt to analyze matters in as straightforward manner as he could muster. Large cut spending were favored by the Legislative Council. They were obviously aware of the smaller the cuts, the more likely they would see the taxes raised. However, there was a matter of the native population who relied on the services that would see their already limited budget slashed. These people's welfare was of no concern to the chief executive, but their potential for riotous behavior later on certainly was. The only way to avoid the risk of his outcome would be lower the size of these cuts, reducing them to the point where the backlash from the Chinese would be muted, would risk drawing the ire of the members of the Legislative Council. Striking middle ground between the two would be delicate, and ran the risk of irritating every side. Having made up his mind, Matsushita lifted up a pen from its holder on his well-kept desk and felt the weight balance itself on the grip of his fingers. He angled the nib and signed off on... We'll do the compromise budget. How does that affect our police support? We're still covered in all these areas, thankfully. Getting a little sketchy in Shonan and Choshu. But I'll just, I'll raid some Yakuza bases. There. And that should hopefully... Yeah. I think that's a okay start. Next. And so we have to go down this path, it would seem. Okay. Let's find new income sources. Enormous amount of capital is produced by an exchange in Guangdong every single day, but the government receives little of the wealth it helps create. While this may have been tolerable in better times, it remains a wholly unsatisfactory state of affairs. If we are to bring our budget back into balance, certain unpopular steps will have to be taken. Taxes will have to be raised to generate badly needed revenue. Let's see what we could do. Approval. The approval's okay with both countries right now. It could be better, but it could also be worse. So I'm not sweating too much. We need to get a 36 billion, I believe. We're already at 35.6 billion. Which is very nice. Ooh, for civilian factories, let's go ahead and do... Let's build up the pearls. I mean, the countryside has better infrastructure at this rate. Which is funny, but probably doesn't make sense either. And yeah, it's all coming together. Product cycle. Shoot. Alright, well, taxation was a subject that caused an unparalleled amount of tension within the Legislative Council. Unsurprisingly, firms with operating profits, balanced on the knife's edge, often had a habit of lashing out in the direction on the first side of raising taxes. This condition had kept revenues from corporate profits one of the most meager streams of Guangdong's government revenue. He'd Matsushita knew that he would have to find the money for his budget plan somewhere, though he could not be sure whether losing the trust and gaining the eye of the council was something that he could afford, for the sake of his political or physical help. He knew full well of what the clandestine side of Guangdong's giant firms were capable of. He tried to keep that thought at the back of his head as far as the back of his head he could, trying to extract all the confidence he could from the security of his position. Consider his options once more. The only other option available to him was the workers of Guangdong and to tax their income, something that would cost much less respect from corporations. But although he may be uncaring for the financial situation of the working peoples, he was not unaware that they were already pressed under the current structure. Squeezing the masses any tighter might only add to his future political problems, which were undoubtedly many already. Finally, Chief Executive floated the idea of pressing for both options to himself. He'd already considered the costs of each. He cannot help but be more weary of the possibility that moderation in this matter in the short term may only cause his government to be short of funds when it's most needed. Yet, even with all the authority enumerated to him through his office of Chief Executive, he cannot help but he cannot stop the inevitable passing of time. A decision had to be made, even it would be painful to do so. There was no avoiding it. Action had to be made. The corporations will pay their fair share. I don't like seeing the seat reductions, but we already have a nice cushion seat-wise, so I'm not freaking out too much. If we wanted to do, we are still behind. Okay, setting up the Zaibatsus. It's well known that we've been struggling to find acceptable deals with the Japanese government directly, and so it is necessary for us to conduct an alternative path that may better serve our interest. We've arranged meetings with several Japanese bankers, representatives of Zaibatsu, in hopes of establishing suitable agreements about possible investments in Guangdong that would be a boon to our budget. Let's do it. Organs for 200 families. Well, Indonesia's starting to... say they're starting to win, but it looks like we're losing in this area. Rural Britannia. I do wonder. This may just be me, but I do wonder if we'll get a trade option with Britain. Probably not if I had a guess, but... Down by the docks, by the riverside piers, boxes of heroin, boxes of cocaine, piled high. Guns, mostly old C-96s and wartime Nambu pistols, lay in a row beside the illicit drugs. Japanese officers on the scene. Minutes earlier, Sergeant Lam Ha-chun arrived on the scene on a patrol wagon. Red and blue flashed intermittently into the warehouse, out of which the Japanese now hauled workers and clerks. "Hands off me!" a Cantonese worker said, throwing off the grip of a Japanese police officer who had held him. The officer was nonplussed about the response. He drew his gun. "I said, you're under arrest. Now, move along if you don't want your brains all over the floor." The sight of the firearm did little to terrify the worker, who puffed his chest as if daring the officer to shoot. Lam ran between them. "Stop! Stop!" he said again, this time in Japanese. He turned to the Japanese officer. "I'll handle this." In one fluid motion, Lam shoved the worker away from him and spun him around. A swift click of handcuffs following shortly after. He read the worker's rights twice, once in Cantonese, once in Japanese. After hauling the cursing worker to the patrol wagon, he joined the circle of police detectives who surround the evidence. This is a mess. Kilograms of illicit drugs, a host of guns, the works. This is a crisis. Witness is uncooperative. We have no leads. Not necessarily. We can get manifests of recent deliveries to the warehouse from the clerk. Wouldn't hurt to try and see if the patterns turn up. There's one hole in our net. Rural Guangdong. Unpoliced wild. In lieu of evidence, we should look there first. Silence nods. The inspector looked at him. "I appreciate it more, Officer Haishi, if neither you or your fellow officers speak out of turn." A shock of anger ran through Lam's fist, but he let it go. Indignity is a privilege of the oppressed, not the oppressor. Damn. We can reinforce the police here, which we will do. Takes to have a triad support, strangely enough, but that's alright. Yeah. Next, we'll go ahead, guarantee their investments. No matter what, we need to ensure that the investors receive their profits. It's the only hope Guangdong has to recover the budget. It may signal direct interference with the economy and the market, but we should do all that is necessary to back up their investment. Eventually, all of Guangdong would benefit from long-term prosperity, despite short-term endeavors that will result from this endeavor. Short-term harms, rather. We can interact with triads. I don't want to mess with Japanese too much. The triads aren't really strong anywhere. They're decently strong in Momai, but they're not within striking distance at all. I think I'll go ahead and downsize Kenpai Tai here. Get a little bit of support for our police force. Go a little longer than I was expecting to this video. There, we're guaranteeing investment. What do we need to get to? Because I think we've passed it. What was it? 36.68. Yeah, we're getting there. Probably get it by the next tick, if I had to guess. Ooh, we got new production units. Excellent. Get more civilian factories going. Keep paying off our debt. Got a nuts surplus, honestly. Let's appropriate stakeholder returns. If the influx of investors attacked at Guangdong, we need to ensure that they are satisfied with their decision. Therefore, we need to guarantee their profits, convincing them that their investors were more fruitful, which may make them consider more beneficial long-term investments. The issue is squarely on whether the profits will be gathered from. Currently, we cannot only scrounge up excess funds from whatever opportunities appear, but at least the investors are happy. There's our, guessing other revenue is where this is going to come from. More research. Not sure what to do. Light aircraft. Yeah, I don't know. I guess aerial refueling, why not? Now check soon. We're getting there. We got this. Oh. We are almost... We've almost passed Guangdong. Or, Manchukuo. Oh. 36.78. We've made our, we got this going. Downtown Chaozhou. A downpour off the walls, down the pavement, into the drains, hammering off the roofs, the storefronts and the ponchos of police officers tasked with sweeping low-rise buildings and warehouses. Lam directed officers to set up checkpoints at crossroads and junctures. The archways were stark against electric lights. Despite the dramatic nature of the operation, the work was quite mundane. The squad approached a building, radioed their progress, and would usually return a negative response. Cruising in the patrol car, Lam passed by the houses that faced southward towards the sea. Rainwater slid down the slope of that gabbled roof, windows dark. Where did it all go wrong? So long ago. A cradle of warmth forever denied to him, standing low in the stout against the rain and gale. Those days were no more. As he rounded the corner, leading downslope and away from his house, he spotted a few figures that scampered away at his approach. The building that lay beside where the two had once stood had the make of a warehouse, large, two-storied, and a truck parked in front of what Lam surmised was a transport gate. He radioed his squad. Unmarked warehouse near the old house just down the street. Around the corner, you won't miss it. I'm going in. Out. Wait for backup, the reply said, hacking its way through. Ignoring the message, Lam put the receiver back into its slot and walked out of the car, flashlight in his left hand. He checked the truck, crates of guns, bags of cocaine and heroin. Intriguing. He let himself through an ajar door beside the building. Stacks of guns, stacks of drugs. In the middle of all, a silk spinner, a bulk of silk in its spokes. At the periphery, Lam saw the silhouette of a man whose hands were turned around him. Freeze! Put your hands above your head and make no sudden movements. Figure it is, he's told. Now turn around. Face me, slowly. No sudden movements. Lam knew the figure was familiar. He'd seen that build somewhere before. Ah, Tan. What are you doing here? Friends of yesteryear. Foes of the new age. Ooh. Matsushita's hands left the podium as he began to walk away from the roaring crowd of businessmen and reporters that faced him. Today, the chief executive had given the announcement that he had been waiting for from the moment he received the promotion. Under the graceful tutelage of Matsushita Masaharu, Guangdong had overtaken Manchukuo as the spear's newest model economic power. Now he had just a 7-meter walk before he exited the stage and returned to his office. Only 20 or so steps to savor this. Matsushita's eyes focused on the flash cameras, his eyes on the screams of reporters shouting questions. He could swear one of them called him a visionary. This was the moment Matsushita thought to himself. This was the event for which Matsushita Masaharu would always be remembered for. A reporter burst through the crowd, asking Matsushita what he saw for the future. He only had one word in his tongue: prosperity. One word, yet two meanings: prosperity for Guangdong and prosperity for himself. Finally, Matsushita forced himself off the stage. Through the double doors into the headquarters proper, his secretary peered out towards him. Matsushita could swear she was trying to stifle a grin. "You have a call from Osaka. Matsushita headquarters." Matsushita beamed, filled with a kind of giddy excitement that a man of his stature was only allowed on the most special occasions. "I'll take it in my office." The state of Guangdong cheers as the Empire of Manchuria lies behind us in sheer GDP. The centenaire has proven the efficiency and capability of a corporate state by relying on the wealth of Japanese expats and wealth of Guangdong's populace, granting the following effects. We get 4 extra seats and a lot of extra approval from everyone involved. Look at that. 56 seats. I love it. I love it. We're doing pretty well. Hypothetically, we're getting closer. 39. We wouldn't get too much extra. Well, that'd be 50. So that'd be 3 from Cheong Kong after they take a seat. Another couple from Sony. In theory, we could bribe our way to independent body at this point, which is undeniably ironic. I don't think anyone would deny that. But I think we'll just have to wait till next time to figure that out. Because I'm leaving it here. All you people, thanks for watching. Like if you liked, dislike if you didn't. And, yeah, check out the links. Leave any comments. And that's it for now, my friends. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.